Hey dudes. So, if you can't tell from the toys behind me or aren't familiar with my Twitter account and blog, you may not know that I'm really into science fiction. There's so much great science fiction out there in many forms, like comics, cartoons, movies, television, and cartoons. One of the things I love about science fiction and just fiction in general is that we can learn a lot from it while also being entertained. We can also find many inspirational characters in fiction, and that's why I often think I just don't understand being Christian or Muslim or Jewish when there's tons of better fiction to get inspiration from. When it comes to Christianity, one defense I often come across is that even if Jesus wasn't God like the doctrine claims, that Jesus is still an inspirational figure to look up to. My aim of this series is to point out that Jesus isn't such an inspirational figure to look up to, and there's much better sources of inspiration out there. I'll eventually talk about some real people that are far more inspirational than Jesus, but I thought I'd start off with some fictional ones. I don't think people have to believe something is real for them to be moved by it. For example, there's a lot of scientists that say they chose their career path because of their love of science fiction, specifically Star Trek. And that leads into the first character I'm going to say is better than Jesus. Spock. Yeah, I have a Spock bear. Science and First Officer Spock always played an important role in helping Captain Kirk to detach emotionally and attempt to analyze things logically. He would often present an outsider's perspective on the human condition, and I personally credit that as one of the things that probably influenced my interest in sociology and philosophy. Logic is fueled by skepticism, and that's very contradictory to the kind of blind faith that Jesus preached in the Bible. Jesus said to not be like doubting Thomas, but Spock would encourage people to doubt. For those who don't know, Spock is half Vulcan, half human, and Vulcans are referred to as an alien species that is very close to humans, close enough to breed together, but evolved beyond us in some ways. And Vulcans make me think of what humans could potentially be. Like if we were to focus more on scientific advances and peace rather than superstitions and war. So in a way, I think the Vulcan species itself is a humanist message. So to get to the major Jesus comparison, Spock is also a character that has died and been resurrected. But unlike Jesus, his death actually saved people in his story. Christians say that Jesus' sacrificial death on the cross is what saved us, but that's never made much sense to me. From what I've understood since I was a kid is his sacrificial death, which was essentially to appease himself, because there's no higher authority than God, which is Jesus in the Christian doctrine, allowed the possibility for our souls to be welcomed into heaven if we believed all the previous stuff I just said. It's all nonsensical mumbo-jumbo that looks just plain stupid if held up to modern-day standards of fiction. But since it's so old and widely culturally accepted, many just immediately disregard that notion as disrespectful. Spocks Sacrifice at the end of Wrath of Khan seems more like an authentic sacrifice than Jesus's because Spock was a mortal being and there wasn't a guarantee of him being able to return. Jesus, as God, would know that he would eventually come back. What was he really sacrificing? Spock did make sure to transfer his Katara, or the sum of his memories and experiences, into McCoy before he sacrificed his body to save the rest of the crew, but he didn't know for sure if he could get his body back, just like Jesus knew. His action was literally saving lives, and it wasn't some magical afterlife portal. It was saving lives right in that moment. He explained to Kirk that it was the logical thing to do with one of my all-time favorite Star Trek lines. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And of course, I won't go into detail about it, but Spock's resurrection on the Genesis planet was way cooler and science fiction-y than Jesus's God magic and 3 days later bullshit. Even though Spock is a mostly emotionless character, I see him as a character largely driven by love. When Christians talk about Jesus, they mention his love of humanity a lot, and it often just feels like lip service to me. Spock's many times of trying to save his crew or humanity in general seems more like somebody that loves humanity than a god that sent himself down in human form to perform a blood ritual to appease himself. Spock also didn't just care about humans and humanoid creatures, and that's pretty awesome. So there you have it, folks. Spock is way better than Jesus. Like if you liked this, and subscribe if you're not already. Live long and prosper, and later, dudes.